Once again, this isn't necessarily where I wanted to go today. I had other plans, several of them. One was a complete failure. Well, not complete, 90% failure. And then about an hour ago, everything collapsed on this. Nothing was here. I had it all cleaned up. And I put it back out. It's a different way of thinking, because objects remind me of things. Once again, I won't get to all of it. This board is another project I'm working on. So I have a couple things to remind myself. One is that the yin-yang and the math of the yin-yang that I understand is what got this started. Harriet Tubman, Save Agnes. But Agnes saves Tom. She's meant to light up the sky. Casting a light on old tough Tom. Come on now. Yeah, well, it comes and goes. Of course, I only had it 2/3 right before Tough Tom. Truly tough Tom. Truly tough Tom. Truly. True lie. Aesop's Fables. The true lie. Last time, I made a video on that chair, but it has a leather seat. I got rid of my leather belt, and I got a leather seat. It was used to be my grandfather's chair. This statue was an award given to my grandfather in the 60s. An award for some sales competition for an insurance company. I'm sure they made it look a little like Bob Hope for some reason that was important for then. Bob Hope. Hope. Hebrews 1:11. Faith is the substance of things. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, evidence of things unseen. Something like that. It's one of the only quotes I know. I listened to like a, 30 or 40 hour lecture on it by this black dude who's a preacher from down in Austin. And it was on, or wait, is it 11:1? 11:1? 1:11. And it was 40 hours on that. Breaking down just a few sentences, because everything's packed in everything, just like Aesop. Now, that comes back to my Snoop Brave video that I just made. To me, Aesop's a black guy. And it's like, what right do you have to say Aesop's a black guy? He was a Grecian. But when it comes to they, who traveled around the world, we don't know. We don't know who these people were, if they really existed. And we put so much stock, academics put so much stock in the philosophers. But then when it comes to the Holy Bible, my my understanding is there's more historical evidence of Paul than there is of Alexander the Great. The first historical account of Alexander the Great, my understanding is, came 350 years after he died, whereas the first historical account of Paul came 60 years after he died, which back then, 60 years is probably about like 60 days now. A year is as a day. Or wait, what is it? A year is as a day, and a day is as 1,000 years. That's a mathematical code too. So, yeah, so anyway, I'd used that chair before, but we're trying to kill papal bulls. But I got a lot of leather in my life. I got a lot of the wrong microbiota and the wrong compounds in my body. I have a lot of the wrong thoughts in my mind. You can't clean one up without cleaning them all up. So today was supposed to be focused on health for me. But health happens in a lot of different ways. You know, it's like if you're sick, you go to the doctor. But then some people aren't as sick because they don't live as crappy of lives. And some people go to alternative medicines and clean up their lives, and they get acupuncture and these types of things, which in some sense, if done by a master, is a higher order. A higher order. It treats more things. It sees deeper to underlying causes. It doesn't just treat symptoms. Not to say that there's not a place for Western medicine. But then on another level, well, what if you go even deeper? What's the deepest thing? And what did the Renaissance look back upon through the lens of Greece to the deepest thing? In Rafe-I-Yell's painting of the philosophers, where were they looking? What was the moral of that painting? There's so much there. You know, the Renaissance masters, they packed movies, you know, like the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel would be like the longest television series. It would be like The Simpsons of America. The longest television series with the most packed into it, you know. That was the major technology of the day of the masters who went around the world. Was Rafe-I-Yell really Rafe-I-Yell? Maybe. Maybe not. And if he was Rafe-I-Yell, he was in their clutches. I said I didn't know much about Rafe-I-Yell, and I don't. But I think I might have gotten to some of the moral of his story. Sometimes our lives boil down to one thing. And for me, Rafe-I-Yell's life boils down to this moment. He's shining a laser from then to me now. And what do we have in common? Those who have been around the world, symbolized by Queen Anne's lace. Queen Anne, the wife of King James. The King James Bible, which 9 times out of 10 in America, if you get a wedding, the groom wears a tux, a tuxedo, a black suit with a white shirt, and the bride wears a white dress with a big bunch of red roses. I know there's other ways, but that's the most stereotypic way, and certainly the most stereotypic of this time, or at least my time. I was born in 77. But the impetus of this whole thing was the yin yang. And no more papal bulls. They call them papal bulls because they used to write law on bullhide. Now, Moses came down from the mountain with shit carved in stone. Came down from the mountain with his 2 slabs carved in stone and destroyed his people's golden calf, their bull. No more papal bulls. That's the moral of that story. Or that's the temporal earthly condensation of the moral of that story. Boils down to no more papal bulls. Stop eating meat. That's what they're trying to tell us. And in my building the case videos, the whole idea is I'm trying to show it mathematically, or at least give an inkling. I'm trying to shine a light on it. And I'm gonna get there. I don't know how, man. So now, I'm using this old broken chair. It's an old broken wobbly chair. I tied it together one time with some string when I was impatient, just kind of like as I am now. Oh yeah. And it held me up for a while, but then the string broke. But it's still strong enough to hold this guy. Before, I put this thing over there. And it took quite a bit of binding, like binding the strong man. But this, sometimes the simple things, this is good. This is pleather. This isn't leather. And it's already got this nice little cushion place where I can stick my thing. And now I can put this in here. And I'm going to get right down to it. So I was going to play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star in wine bottles, which Mozart wrote as a child. I guess it was his first little thing he did, whatever. So I started filling up bottles with water. Is this getting? I'm not sure if it's getting everything here. Yeah, that should get it. So I started filling up bottles with water, but I never knew, because I never did it, even though I knew it would change the tone. I never actually did it. And then when I did, see, I thought that the less water it would have, because I was thinking in my guitar, I thought putting water in the bottle would be like plucking a string, and that up here would vibrate more. As it turns out, the more water in the bottle, the lower the tone. This has none. Kangaroo, little shout out to the Aborigines who swing their thingies to make music, just like David swung his slingshot. David, who made the music. But yeah, this one is higher pitched than this, and I never knew that before. Now I know. And that was good enough for me. That was a lesson of the day. Mozart can wait. Alright, so we're going to dig through the material. We're going to dig through the material. First, well, those who went around the world. Black book with the white pages with the gold printed across. Holy Bible. With the ring. That he gives to his wife, Queen Anne, King James.
That was easy.
And what does the wedding cake look like? Big fluffy white cake. A pyramid. And then usually there's little figurines at the top representing Queen Anne's lace, King James, never mind, King James' gay lover. But what was really happening? They built it in. They built it in for now. The reason I know that is because I figured it out. I haven't figured it all out, but I figured it out. And I'm still figuring it out. I'm tuning. I'm a slippery shape, and if I get it right, I'll get there. But we only all get there, like the masters who are here, most of them, who are the true masters, the true maestros, the true music makers. They're here. But we've got to get here. So the Greeks, Rafe-I-Yell. The Greeks, Rafe-I-Yell. Light the torch. You know, the Olympists, they carry the torch and they pass it from one person to another person around the world, just like the nomads. Carry that torch around the world. I'm no Olympian. I am not an Olympian. But the big thing is keeping that torch alive, keeping that flame lit. That's Agnes. Her flame went out. But we're going to go back in time and save Agnes. How many Marys have we lost? We're all Mary. Just like Mary in Lord of the Rings. We're all Mary. You know, and what was the other one? I just remember when Gandalf yelled at him, Peregrine Took. I don't know if that was his name. But that other little hobbit who liked to drink and who was a rascal, you know, he sang the most beautiful song. He lit the beacon. He once saved Gandalf. So, he wasn't Frodo. He wasn't Gandalf. He wasn't the king. But he played an important part. He was brave enough and strong enough to hold that torch for an instant. Some people carry the torch for miles and miles and miles and miles and miles. And some of us, like me, are the troll beneath the bridge, laying in wait, that one day, maybe, if that torch drops, we can catch it, knowing that we're not one of the Olympians who's meant to carry that torch for miles and miles. But when the Olympians are battling the Trojans, they might drop that torch. I can't battle a Trojan. But while the Olympians are battling the Trojans, if the Olympian, or I'm sorry, I was saying Olympians and Trojans. Who did they lock away? Who did they, who was it the Olympians? Who was it the Olympians? I guess you know what I mean if you're familiar with it. It's like the Olympians battled the, I'm having a brain fart. But the thing, you know, demons. We'll use the word demons. Even though that term can be used in different ways too, but so when the Olympians are battling the demons, and if they drop the torch, you know, if I'm not strong enough to battle the demon of demons, while the Olympians fight that series of entities, that hierarchy of entities, when they drop the torch, because even the gods among us aren't completely perfect. They're just so much better they seem that way, and to us they pretty much are. But when they drop it, that you might hold it for a moment and give it back, keeping that flame lit. How's this look? Let's see. So Diogenes, I mentioned Alexander before. Diogenes is famous for something along the lines where when Alexander met Diogenes, when Alexander met Diogenes, it was something along the lines of Diogenes was resting on the ground. Diogenes, who, story goes, masturbated in public, lived in a barrel, carried around a lantern even during the day, saying he was looking for a wise man, looking for a knowledgeable man. I can't remember the exact quote. Couldn't find one. But in Rafe-I-Yell's painting, he found one. Diogenes, who Rafe-I-Yell's painting puts alone. Diogenes in that painting stands alone at the bottom, at the depths. In the shape of the yin-yang. Holding a single page. He's not holding a lantern. He's holding a page. Why did he put down his lantern? Because he found a knowledgeable man. Diogenes, who lived in a barrel, like Oscar the Grouch. Tough Tom. Diogenes is alone in that painting. I mean, Oscar the Grouch, everybody loved Oscar. We know he had a good heart, but he was a badass dude. Badass dude from the depths. He could be a bitch. Every so often he had a legitimate gripe. Diogenes at the center, who a Renaissance master put at the center, at the depths. Tough Tom. He had a gripe, he had a chip on his shoulder. He was Thomas the Doubter. He was Judas. He was John the Baptist. In his barrel of water, like Harriet Tubman. Harriet, tub, man, hand. Women are men. Men are Haman. I'm not sure if I'm getting my direction right. But Diogenes, here he is, the yin yang, off center. Nothing touches him, except for one man. I couldn't find who it was, looking it up online. There's one man whose foot touches Diogenes' shoulder. What would be touching his foot? A toe. Toenail. What's a toenail look like? A chip. He's got a chip on his shoulder. And that's good. Diogenes didn't go around philosophizing, not even so much as Socrates, who killed himself, just like Ananias Nin. Had Socrates known what Diogenes knew, just as had Ananias Nin known what the dude who invented the chestahedron knows, is that there's fifth chamber to the heart. There's an invisible spinning point at the center of a yin yang. That all the philosophizing is good, it's necessary, so on and so forth. But if you want to get right to the heart of the matter, right? If you want to get right to the heart of the matter, now the Indians, Hindu, I don't know. I don't know much about it. And everybody talks about the third eye. Very important. But there's different ways to be masters. There's the masters of adrenaline. There's the masters of melatonin. They're different. But we want to be the masters of both. And you can't just be a master of one and a master of the other and bring them together. You can't be a master of one and then become a master of another. If you want to be the master of both, you got to work that stuff. Masters of one or the other are an off-balance yin-yang. Now, Diogenes is an off-balance yin-yang, but he's a hell of a lot closer, at least represented in this mythology. But the heart of the matter is the moral of the story. The moral of the story. Moses came down off that mountain with his stone tablets, destroyed the bull. The same way Jesus died on the cross. People always say he died to save me of my sins. They forget the other part of that, because in the Old Testament, supposedly, there's a lot here in the way that they, the nomads, went across time in the world. And it's hard to talk, because you're talking about this part of the world, and this part of time, this part of the world, this part of time. It's hard to talk in a linear fashion about a spherical object that also changes. So, this is a fiction, this is a story, this is a made thing. Forgive me. I'm doing the best I can. But I've got the moral, and I'm trying to pass it on. Or the main morals. The biggest, there's all kinds of problems, right? So, I smashed this toe one time. Bam! It hurt like hell. If I'd had a heart attack at the same time, the toe could wait, right? So yeah, there's all kinds of problems. There's all kinds of problems with me. There's all kinds of problems with the world. But the heart pumping is numero uno. Well, the breath breathing. The heart pumping. Obviously, you need all of it, but if I couldn't breathe or if my heart couldn't pump, those would take priority. Those would be big problems. You know, I might have liver damage. Well, I do, but you know, I have all these things. But if the heart isn't working physically, and if the heart isn't working spiritually, never mind the gut. It's all just a metaphor. People say Jesus died for my sins. Do you remember why? First of all, the three wise men. People say, oh, Jesus was the only one, or people say, you know, Muhammad, he was the last prophet. But, I mean, I don't know how the translations work, but, you know, when that book was written, he was the last one. You know, just like in my last video, I made a tube and throat singing video. That's not my last video anymore. Now this one is. They've been around. Jesus died for my sins. The reason he said that, whoever said it, whatever, was so that the Jews would stop sacrificing animals to God. Either in a very explicitly sacrifice way, burning the flesh to God, barbecue, or in an unconscious passive way, like eating your specific meats on specific holidays. It was the good spell. This is kind of like magic. I've got all my little runes, but that's not why I'm doing it. I'm doing it because I didn't have the time to write it out. I got to get it out because I won't live long enough to get where I'm trying to get to give what I'm trying to give, and also to receive what I'm trying to receive. The truth. Yes, I seek the truth, you know. They say you can't always get what you want, but sometimes you get what you need. But sometimes what you want is what you need. And sometimes what not getting what you want is what you need, you know? It's just so important. So important. That's the moral of the story. Aesop, Diogenes, why he held that one piece of paper. It was one piece of paper. It wasn't a whole book. It wasn't a philosophical text. It wasn't a pamphlet. It wasn't a, what do they call those Coptic folios or whatever. It wasn't a scroll. It wasn't a papyrus. It was a one-pager. It was a fable. He found Aesop. And where was he looking? Well, let me get my orientation here. So first of all, he's in the shape of Italy. So that would have pleased the popes. That would have pleased the people who said, why are you painting Greece instead of the Bible? Saying, oh, it's for the Gentiles. And look, this figure looks like Italy. Oh, okay. Yeah. So that when a symbolist looked at it, they'd say, hey, this guy's a master. What's the moral of the story? Italy kicks ass. And for all the Italians in Italy looking at this painting, hey, great. You know, go Italy. Not that there's anything wrong with Italy. I don't know much about it. Obviously, awesome. Just saying. But he's a Greek. So then we can also picture that as Greece. So, it's like Greco-Roman crunched into one. And he's holding his one page, looking where? He's holding a one-pager, a fable. The great Grecian, not pictured in, well, maybe he is. Maybe he is pictured there. But anyway, whether he is or he isn't, where's he really looking? In this sense, Aesop is the dread pirate Roberts of Princess and the Bride. There were many of them. And they passed it along, one to the other, like the three wise men. The three wise men were three of the dread pirate Roberts, were three of the Aesops, were three of the old masters. They were from the East. I'm mixing my stories, but they're from all over, and they go all over. And I don't know when they started or where they started, and I don't know who the first one was, but they go back, and they go forward, and they go to the middle, and they go in and out, and this way and that. The three wise men had to come to tell Mary, because she was a doubting Thomas, because we're all doubting Thomases. And when we say I believe, we don't. We're not being authentic. Until you get pounded down in the trash can, in the barrel. Man, I've been pounded like a mother. And I don't know what my next pounding is going to be. But I know I haven't hit the bottom because I haven't gotten to the top. He was looking to Ethiopian Aesop. Ethiopia, or Ethiopian math, at least these days, could be considered, they're the masters of the base system. Zero to the zero. One pagers. So he's shaped like a yin yang, so he's given respect to the east, and he's looking down from Greco-Italy toward Ethiopia through a fable. He's not holding a lamp anymore in the day, because he found the moral of the story. And that's what Rafe-I-Yell has to tell us. It's his most famous painting. Central figure of the most famous painting. Now, what's the moral of the story? He's standing alone, but there's a guy who's standing on him with the chip on his shoulder. Just for the sake of brevity, let's just pretend I'm standing. Let's just pretend I'm standing. So he's got the chip on the shoulder. But then that young boy rises in the midst of the people, with a glad heart, a happy, bright face, a youth, looking beyond the picture, looking beyond the philosophers. If we go with the map story, he's looking to the Irish. To the leprechauns. The fool's gold is their gold. The real gold is their mastery, the strength of the little person, of that risen youngster. Trying to figure out if I want to stop or keep going. I guess we'll keep going. Harriet Tubman. Who was Harriet Tubman? Harry, the hairy women. Harry Krishna, Harry Carey. Die to the flesh. It's another part of the Bible. Die to the flesh. What do they mean? Stop eating flesh. Seek death. Fruit. Why is fruit dead? Because it's already dead. It's going to fall off the tree. It has a short life. It's not, you let the plant live, but you take the fruit. You clip the nails. Yeah, so where are we at now? Missed all that. Harriet Tubman. You'll just have to bear with me. Bear the cross. Another thing this is about, it's about all the girls I loved before. I was promiscuous. Prometheus? Promiscuous. We'll get to Prometheus. Prometheus and the dung beetle. So that would be, this picture could be like a boiled down one-pager conclusion to a lot of the green shirt series of my last videos. Berry beer, bird, beard. Black Aesop. Because all the girls I loved before, why didn't it work out? Because I was always looking for Agnes inside of me. I was looking for that young girl inside of me. And whether I loved them or thought I did, and whether I lusted after them, I guess I lusted after all of them, but that love, that attraction that was beyond just the physical was recognizing that girl in me, the Agnes in me, the Dorothy in me. And I'm still trying to figure it out. I found her, but I mean, she's still hurting, and we're keeping her under lockdown right now. But my bad old Oscar the Grouch, my bad old Diogenes with the chip on his shoulder, he's subsided. Because now my tough Tom has the tools to deal with the dragon, the bad dragon. That's it for now. Never did get to the yin yang, but I want to give some love. I want to give some love. I want to create a pen pal with China, the dominance of the East, just as America's the dominance of the West. It's important. It's important that America and China unite under a common cause. And I don't mean unite as a government necessarily, but that the peoples come together, that we as peoples care more about each other, which I think we already do. And maybe it's because we don't care enough for the Agnes inside us that our governments, as condensations of us, are not able to bridge that divide. But imagine if the best of the West and the best of the East could harmonize. Imagine if the best of America and the best of Asia could harmonize. People say all this about, was it Huawei and security and the internet and like missiles and defense. Let me tell you something right now. And it's really important that everybody knows and understands this. Those who have been around the world, those who are the ultimate trim tabbers, those who can do things that you would not believe, and I've come to know and understand many of the things that they do, just about killed me coming to that understanding. Because it so shakes the foundations of what we know. It hurts. You can't handle the truth. Well, Jack Nicholson was right. We can't. But they, who have been around the world, want us to understand. But we need bigger hearts and bigger minds. And we need to do work to get there. But if we can boil it down, and that's one thing about stories, boiling things down. If we can boil it down to the heart. Heart brings you back, yeah, yeah, yeah. I ain't telling you no lie. The whole brings you back, hey, yeah. Asia, America, Europe, The Irish. How far underground is the Underground Railroad? What railroad is beneath the underground? How far back in time does it stretch? But one of the things that should unite the East and the West is the transatlantic above ground railroad. The Asians and the Irish. The Golden Spike. What a beautiful symbol. I don't know what Chinese saints are. I do because I don't understand. You know, to me, Asia is a thing, and it's hard for me to tell the difference between the countries because I don't know, and I'm asking your forgiveness. You know, forgive me. I want to learn. I know as far as Korea goes, like St. John sounds like Sejong, who created Hangul, which seems like it was a really beautiful, 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 beautiful gift to his people, the language. Languages are created. He created that one quick. English was created over time, but created nonetheless. And not just by the English, by people like Sejong, and maybe even Sejong himself. So we got our Dorothy, our Agnes, our sisterly love. She also saves Tough Tom. It isn't just Tom who saves her, she saves him. She cleans that old grouch, pulls him out of the trash can, pulls him out of the barrel, washes him up, gives him a moral. The false prophets are still prophets. The false prophets are the students. They're lifted up by the prophets, the real prophets, the true masters, the maestros. Zip a zip a zip, zip a zip, zip a zip a zip, zip. Bow, 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 bow. You know, and if Jesus was on the cross and the criminals on each side him, maybe those criminals were really masters who'd already done the work, but they were there being lower than him to hold him up. So he had someone to look at, someone to be with, so he wasn't alone. This is symbology. The other shit, not as much, or it's all symbology. What I'm trying to say is that we're all false prophets. intended to be prophets. We're all fallen, intended to be risen. We're all Agnes, intended to be Mary. We're all Judas, intended to be Jesus. They hold him up. So that he could rise. Who holds them? Just like in Superman. The Superman movie, I think it was the first one, when Superman's carrying Lois Lane and he says, "I gotcha." And she says, "You got me, who's got you?" It's also like in Team America, when the opening scene, you have a marionette puppet who's holding another marionette puppet, right? These dudes are held by God because they made it. They've already risen, so to speak, if not. Now, this dude's got a direct line to God, this false prophet, but it's weak. He's hanging by a thread. The false prophets, you and me, hanging by a thread. These dudes, they give support because that thread can break. And then you got to start all over or perish forever. You know, it ain't good. But when these dudes got you, and then when you finally one day see them, see who or what they are, until you're one of them you can't really see, but... And the whole idea is that you might strengthen that cord. That you might strengthen that cord. Cord. Think of all the ways that the sound of that word means. Cord. So that you might strengthen that. So that you might receive from the Most High. So they don't have to hold you anymore. And that makes them bigger. That lifts them up. And then when all of you are lifted by that strong cord, then you can lift others more. And they've been going all around the world all this time. Now, that also comes into Judas being hung. Remember in Goonies when the criminal hangs himself? Remember in Goonies when the criminal hangs himself, but he's really got an S-shaped pipe in his butt? Or not in his butt, but you know what I mean. Or that wrestler who had such a strong neck he could actually hang himself by his neck and live. Think on that. I'll let you do the math on that one. Bear the cross. So that's what I chose to do today. I guess I got more of this shit to work out, but never did get to the yin yang. Oh well. Well, I'm from the West, so I'm dealing with the West stories. I'm from 20th century America, and I'm dealing with 20th century America's stories, but the story is everywhere. Even in me, in my stories. I just hope I don't know, seems so unlikely that anything that I say or do could really be of any benefit to anybody. But I see their story, and it's so beautiful. And if I can just find a way to say it, that would make me a very happy man. Because it's not just a story, it's a truth. That's it for now.